What if the most powerful thing a royal institution could ever do was simply choose silence over spectacle? Ladies and gentlemen, we live in a world that has confused visibility with value and presence with strength. We have been conditioned to believe that if someone is not seen, something must be wrong, that absence is suspicious, that privacy is guilt, and that the moment a familiar face disappears from our screens, we are owed an explanation. But I stand before you today to challenge that assumption at its very core, because throughout history, the greatest acts of love, the boldest declarations of protection, and the most defining moments of true leadership have not happened under floodlights or before cameras. They have happened in quiet rooms, behind closed doors, in the sacred space where duty ends and humanity begins. Today, we are not here to talk about crowns and ceremonies. We are here to talk about something far more important: the courage it takes to protect what truly matters, even when the entire world is watching and demanding otherwise. The royal family operates under a deeply embedded framework of privacy protocols that have been refined over centuries of monarchy. These unwritten and sometimes formally documented rules determine which members of the family appear in public, at what age, under what circumstances, and how frequently. Younger and more vulnerable members are given especially careful consideration, as the institution recognizes that early and excessive exposure to media scrutiny can cause lasting psychological harm. These protocols are not merely traditions, they are protective mechanisms designed to preserve the dignity, mental health, and personal development of those born into a life they did not choose. Senior royals and palace advisors regularly assess whether public appearances serve the family's image or compromise a member's welfare, and when those two interests conflict, welfare is increasingly being placed first. This represents a significant evolution in how the monarchy manages its most precious responsibility: the human beings within it. The way the royal palace communicates with the public and the press is one of the most carefully managed operations in the world of institutional public relations. Every word in an official statement is chosen with surgical precision, reviewed by communications teams, legal advisors, and senior members of the royal household before it ever reaches the public. A palace confirmation is never accidental and never casual. It is issued because silence has become more damaging than disclosure. The strategy behind these communications is layered. The goal is always to provide just enough information to calm speculation while revealing as little as possible about private matters. This balance is extraordinarily difficult to maintain in the digital age, where social media accelerates rumor faster than any official channel can respond. When the palace does speak, the world pays attention, and that power is never wasted on trivial matters. Every statement carries institutional authority and is designed to shape perception, restore calm, and reaffirm public trust in the monarchy. The relationship between the royal family and the global media has always been complicated, frequently contentious, and at times deeply damaging. The public has an enormous appetite for royal content: their appearances, their clothing, their children, their struggles, and the media industry has built billion-dollar ecosystems around satisfying that appetite. However, this hunger often collides violently with the family's fundamental right to privacy, particularly when children and health matters are involved. The boundary between what the public deserves to know and what a family has the right to keep private is not always clearly defined, and powerful media organizations have historically pushed aggressively against that line. In recent years, members of the royal family have become far more vocal and assertive in defending their boundaries, taking legal action when necessary, and publicly calling out intrusive or inaccurate coverage. This shift signals a broader change in how the institution views its relationship with the press, moving away from quiet endurance toward active self-defense and the bold assertion that being royal does not mean surrendering every dimension of one's private life. For most of the monarchy's modern history, the concept of putting personal health, and especially mental health, above public duty was considered almost unthinkable. The culture of the institution demanded stoicism, endurance, and an unwavering presence regardless of personal suffering. That culture, however, has undergone a profound transformation, driven in large part by younger members of the family who have been willing to speak openly about mental health struggles, burnout, grief, and the unique psychological pressures of royal life. Today, health and well-being are increasingly cited as legitimate, honorable reasons for stepping back from public engagements, and the palace has begun to reflect this shift in how it communicates absences and withdrawals. This is not just a royal phenomenon, it mirrors a broader global conversation about the importance of mental health in high-pressure environments. But within the context of an institution as traditional and duty-bound as the British monarchy, acknowledging that a person's well-being must sometimes take precedence over their public role represents a genuinely historic cultural shift that carries enormous significance. Trust between the royal family and the public is not guaranteed. It is earned, maintained, and when handled poorly, it can erode with frightening speed. When a well-known royal figure disappears from public view without any explanation, the vacuum created is immediately filled by speculation, rumor, and in the modern digital landscape, outright misinformation that spreads globally within hours. The palace has learned, sometimes through painful experience, that prolonged silence in the face of public concern rarely serves the institution well. A carefully issued confirmation, even one that reveals very little detail, performs a vital function. It acknowledges the public's concern, demonstrates that the institution is aware of and responsive to that concern, and provides a stable, authoritative narrative to replace the chaos of rumor. Transparency does not require full disclosure. It requires honesty proportionate to the circumstances. When the palace chooses to confirm something, it is making a calculated decision that the cost of continued silence outweighs the discomfort of limited disclosure. And that act itself is a gesture of respect toward the public who have invested emotionally in the royal family for generations. Being born into royalty is often romanticized as a life of privilege, luxury, and fairy tale grandeur. But the reality for those who grow up within the institution is far more complex, demanding, and at times profoundly isolating. From the earliest age, royal children exist in a unique paradox. They are simultaneously fiercely protected and relentlessly observed, shielded from ordinary life, yet placed before cameras at moments of great national significance before they are old enough to understand what any of it means. The psychological burden of growing up as public property, of knowing that your image, your behavior, and your very existence will be scrutinized, debated, and sometimes weaponized by media and public opinion, is something no childhood should carry. Responsible guardianship within the royal family therefore means making deliberate, sometimes unpopular decisions to remove younger members from public life when their welfare demands it. Not because the institution is hiding something, but because love and wisdom sometimes require the courage to disappoint public expectation in defense of a child's right to simply grow up with some measure of peace, normalcy, and protection from the extraordinary pressures that their birthright will eventually demand of them in full.